Welcome to the Beehive, where we turn business and financial buzz into actionable insights. Today, we're tackling a pressing issue, the growing talent gap in the finance sector. The availability of skilled professionals in finance is becoming a concern, and this shortage is poised to hinder the growth of both startups and large corporations alike. To dive into this critical topic, we're joined by Aira, Scrubbed's Chief Financial Officer. With her extensive experience and expertise, Aira is perfect to help us unpack the challenges and explore solutions. In this episode, we'll discuss the implications of the talent shortage in finance and how global professional firms can play a role in bridging this skills gap. Aira, welcome to the Beehive.
Thanks for that generous introduction, William. I appreciate it and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you today. So, tell us first a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background and what you do here at Scrubbed.
All right, so I'm Chief Financial Officer at Scrubbed. I've held the position for about a year now. Prior to that, I started the corporate finance practice here at Scrubbed. So I've really seen Scrubbed from the early days with only about 50 people to now where we have about 1,500. So I would say startup to where we are now, I've kind of seen that. And in my current role as Chief Financial Officer, my main role really is to manage resources. Scrubbed has grown to an enterprise now, and gone are the startup days where we were doing things, I would say, more ad hoc. So a lot of what I do now is really professionalizing and creating the policies necessary to run a larger enterprise. So a lot of that has to do with managing resources such as budgeting, creating policies, making sure the house is in order, making sure we have proper accounting, proper financial planning, so that we could steer the organization in the right direction. Yeah. Right.
To our audiences, she's also a would you consider yourself a professional badminton player?
I was, not anymore. In my teenage years, I represented the Philippines abroad in some Asian tournaments. In a brief time of my life, I thought I'd be a professional badminton player. But then when I hit, so that was when I was in high school, but when I hit college and found out how good the Chinese were in badminton and the Indonesians, I'm like, I'll pivot a little bit. I'll just be an accountant. Well, you pick your battles, right?
Yeah.
It looked like a battle that was hard to win. It's a big jump from badminton to accounting, but that is the path that I took.
Yeah, and here we are. So let's dive in straight to the topic, Aira. Can you start by giving us a broad overview of the current talent gap in the finance sector? Like, what is it all about?
So this is very close to us, especially me having run operations for quite a while and having to hire over 1,000 people within a short amount of time here at Scrubbed. The accounting profession is getting smaller, I would say, when it comes to students interested in accounting. And just accountants entering the workforce, right? Ooh. I'll give you a few stats. So from the AICPA, right, the number of U.S. CPA candidates from 2016 to 2022 has dropped about 35%, wow. Right? And then if you compare that to the number of accountants entering the workforce, joining companies from 2016 to 2022 in the same period, it dropped about 30%. Wow. Right? So we're really working with a smaller number of fresh graduates and fresh CPAs, and it's been a long time coming, right? It's been a long time coming. It's not just because of the great resignation that we experienced in 2021, where we had COVID and people thought life is precious. I'm not gonna stick it so long in a job I'm unhappy with, right? So that was the great resignation, but that's been addressed. That's kind of stabilized by 2023. And that's on the general labor market. But if we're talking about just accounting, it's been a period of my dad was an accountant. That's why I went into accounting, and he told me accounting is something that you have a profession, and if you don't want to practice your profession, every business needs accounting, right? So there's a certain level of job security where you'll always find a job if you're in accounting. But it's also plagued with the perception that accounting is boring. An accounting job means you're at the beginning of your career underpaid, overworked, right? And so for the new generation now, that's not necessarily sexy. That's not as appealing as I'll work for a tech company or I'll start my own YouTube channel. The gratification comes a little later. The runway, because I went through it in my career. Like if you graduate with an accounting degree, you get your CPA, you get your experience from the big four, the large accounting firms. I went through that. It was a period of very long hours,
high stress,
not compensated very well. But I grew as a professional. I am what I am because of those early years of long hours. But again, there are more options now. There's so many, particularly in the US, there's so many tech companies that are in need of accounting graduates, right? They have their in-house finance and accounting team. So there really is a talent shortage. And here at Scrub, we have relationships with so many US CPA firms, and everyone is harping the same tune. There's no one to hire, right?
Wow.
So an HR survey in the US showed that every accountant that wants a job is hired. Like they have a job. Even if the unemployment rate in the US is about 4%, none of that is from accounting.
Wow.
Because there are more open accounting jobs than there are accountants willing to fill up that job, right? So the demand is really high, but the supply is really low.
Yeah.
And so you have CPA firms competing for the same talents. And they're not just competing amongst themselves, CPA firms, they're competing with the tech companies. They're
other
competing
businesses
with
too,
the other
industries,
businesses. They're competing with industry. And that's what we're seeing, and we don't expect it to stop. I mean, the accounting profession is here to stay forever, right? Because again, all businesses need accountants. It's just that we need to change the perception of the profession.
Definitely.
The profession is actually fun. Like if you ask me, do I regret dropping my badminton career and hopping into accounting? No, because through accounting, you meet many different, especially in our line, which is advisory and consulting, you meet several businesses, several business owners. So you learn so much from those projects. And then from relationships, you meet new people. From a technical standpoint, you learn so much. There's so much. Accounting is not just closing the books. Accounting is so much more. There's accounting, there's tax, there's risk advisory, there's technical accounting, there's M&A support, right? So it is a very interesting topic. And so I think we just need to change the perception, although that will take time. That will take time. And we expect this trend to continue. The talent shortage, particularly in the US, is where we're seeing it.
So would you say that the biggest reason for this talent gap in the finance sector is because of the gradual perception of the next generation, their perception of it's not really a good industry if I want to focus on my mental being, something of that sort?
Yeah, but I think it's a misconception, right? I wouldn't say it's mental being. It's also economics, right? Again, there's a perception where you work long hours for not a lot of money, which I don't think is true, right? Which I don't think is true. At least for the people here at Scrub, I don't think it's true. And for my personal experience, right? But again, it's a bit of a delayed gratification, because when you graduate with an accounting degree, you're not really ready to go. There are those training years first, before you can say you can advise someone, you can advise a business owner on what to do financially for his business, and that's really where the rewards come in, right? So it's the kid who wants the marshmallow now, or the kid
that test,
or the kid that can wait and have two marshmallows.
Exactly.
I look at it that way, but again, to each his own, right? Everyone has different priorities, so it just needs to align with their priorities.
Just need a little bit of patience. Yeah, but for the company's perspective, what are the immediate challenges that they face due to the lack of qualified finance professionals?
I think it has a huge impact. The talent shortage has a huge impact to businesses, right? Because if you don't have a proper finance and accounting compliance function, if your team is not there, it significantly affects your decision making to run your business, right? Because you always need to look at your historical financials to guide you in making decisions just for the next year, right? And a lot of decisions, as CFO at Scrub, a lot of the new decisions, say policies that we need to implement, are a function of something we saw last year, right? But I can only do that if I have proper accounting, proper financial planning and analysis, data to tell me that, all right, we're spending a little bit too much on this area of our business, and it does not provide the results that we need to achieve our goals. And so that's where you can make the business decision if you're a CFO, if you're the owner, where you reallocate or change the strategy completely, right? But again, you can't get to that without a team in place to tell you what's going on exactly. And so you have so many businesses, especially the smaller ones, right, that don't have the structure in place to tell them. I'm a CFO of a startup. I don't have a dashboard that tells me how my business is doing, right? And a lot of that is provided by finance people, data analytics people. So I think it has a huge impact, right? And I'm just talking about the business owners. I'm not even talking about the CPA firms. We have a lot of clients that are CPA firms. everyone's overworked because they don't have people. Their current people are being stretched too much, and so they resign because they're overworked. But the need for accounting, finance, compliance, and all the other services that come, it doesn't stop. The U.S. economy is growing. There's just more demand for services, right? So that's not stopping. Yet the people being able to do the work is decreasing.
Would you say that there are maybe permanent solutions to this kind of problem? Like I've heard of CPA firms actually using technology, maybe AI, to tackle like accounting problems, or even small startups using AI. Because I've heard like even ChatGPT can answer some accounting questions that you have. So are there maybe technology or automation that businesses can utilize to cope with the talent shortage?
My answer to that is yes and no. So technology is going to play a huge role in addressing the talent gap, right? A process that you needed 10 people before, you could probably do it 5 with automation, with AI. But these 5 people need to be tech enabled. They need to know how to run the tech, right? So we're doing here at Scrubbed, we're doing a lot of research on AI, on what new AI technologies can make, for example, the financial reporting close process faster, right? But it is never completely technology. You will always need a person navigating that, using it. Yes, you would need less people.
Yeah.
But then the number of people that are knowledgeable on AI in tech is again much smaller. I already told you that the accounting candidates shrunk, right?
Yeah.
But then if you look at that population and you look at the number of people that can use AI, that can use technology, that is a smaller portion, right? And that's why here at Scrub for this year, we made a conscious decision to triple our spend on training.
Wow.
Specifically to catch up and be technically competent, right? To catch up with evolving standards, but also to be able to use technology to service our clients better.
So we've talked about technology as a possible solution, or as an assistance to the solution, right? But what are the actual solutions that these companies, maybe CPA firms, can utilize for this big problem? Because this is a big problem right now.
So the answer is really 2 things to me. One is technology, which we already discussed. The second one is outsourcing, right? It's the reason why Scrub exists.
Interesting.
We have plenty of CPA firm clients that need a resource now, right? And they can't get it in the market because the U.S. talent market is just not there, right? Yeah. And this is where I really believe in the cause of what we're doing, because we have global talent that's available. I'm talking to you from the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
So we're in the Philippines. We can do high-level finance services from here. We have clients that are publicly listed in the New York Stock Exchange, in NASDAQ, and these are companies that have rigorous requirements from regulators. Yet the work can be done here.
Yeah.
And they pass their audit, right? So that is something fascinating. And I know the world opened up in 2020 when COVID happened, and everyone got used to remote work. But Scrubb's 12 years old.
Yeah.
Prior to COVID, we were already doing remote.
Wow.
We already believed in the concept that work, especially finance and accounting, can be done elsewhere, right? Yes, you still need, and it's always a good mix of outsourced people and in-house people, right? Our people are successful because they get the support of the in-house US-based resources of our clients. And so when you have that teamwork between in-house professionals and outsourced professionals, you can come up with amazing output and provide value for your company. So we've been doing that for more than a decade, right? And we've helped a number of clients solve their capacity issues. Yeah. But not just capacity issues, even technical advisory issues, right? Some CEOs of startups asking us for help because they don't know what to do. And just because we've been in this business for so long, we've helped numerous clients. We already know, right? We've seen it. And so it's a matter of also guiding our clients in the compliance requirements they need to do, or from a housekeeping standpoint, what they need to do to get their books in order, or what kind of analysis they need to be doing, what kind of internal controls they need to be setting up. We also come in as an advisor, as someone with expertise to help clients. Right?
So it's interesting that you brought up outsourcing, since in my perspective, there is a negative stereotype towards outsourcing, wherein the quality of work isn't really there. You know what I mean? So what can you say about that?
So I can only speak to what I've seen, right? And in the outsourcing space, really what I've seen is Scrub, right? But I do have plenty of clients that have negative experiences with other outsourcing providers, right? I don't want to speak ill of other providers, but you know, it really depends on finding the right partner, I would say, because of course quality will vary depending on who your provider is. There's a lot of outsourcing providers all over the world, right? Number one being India, and India is probably actually one of the lowest cost outsourcing companies that you'll see, right? The Philippines comes in second place. We're a big outsourcing nation. I would say from a cost perspective, a little higher than India, but from a quality perspective, I wave my banner here and say that from a communication standpoint, we're much better, just because English is kind of a natural language for Filipinos. In fact, when we deal with our clients, they find out we're watching the same shows as them. And so it's not just a quality of work standpoint. It's also the harmony and the chemistry of working together. You're working with someone who's always happy. Filipinos are one of the happiest countries in the world, right? Where you see people smiling, that's why we're the customer service capital of the world, because people are generally nice, because that's a trademark of Filipinos, being good at hospitality. So you like the person that you're working with, at the same time, the level of quality is there, right? And Scrub, I would say, is of a higher quality, because it's not just the Philippines that we're looking at. We're looking at kind of the higher, top tier talent of the Philippines, right? So Scrub, about 10,000 resumes come through our doors every year.
Wow.
And we accept around 4% of that, right? And that kind of helps us with the quality issue. And that's why we've grown. That's why clients have been happy with us, right? So yes, there is a negative stereotype that I'll get an outsource partner.
Yeah.
I'll give them all the low level work that I don't want to do, and it'll be cheaper, right? It may be true for other providers, but for Scrub, we want our client to engage with us because the client believes they could get quality work from us,
Wow.
right? Not just because we're cheaper. And we have plenty of success stories there that we can draw from.
Yeah, can you share some examples of those success stories where, your company Scrub has helped businesses maybe achieve their goals?
And this really helps the narrative where we're not just a low cost provider doing the
Bare minimum.
menial work, right? So I'll give you some examples. The first example would be, I would say, my first ever corporate finance client at Scrub. This is way back in 2017. We were helping a CEO of a chocolate manufacturer. He's just starting his business. He's about a year old, but his product is really fantastic. Really good chocolate, really good design, really good traction from an online consumer space. But he needed to grow capacity, so he needed equipment to increase his capacity. He had no finance team because that's usually what we see with startup companies. Their main focus is putting out the best product out there, proving that the market will buy it, right? And so most of the team is the founder and the operations people getting the product out, getting it to customers, selling it, right? Finance and accounting is usually an afterthought. But if you want to raise capital, you need proper finance and accounting, right? And so Scrub came in, right? And this is not even because of talent shortage or whatever, right? They needed someone to tell them what they needed to get the capital in. So we came in, brought an entire accounting team. We had to go through a year's worth of transactions for them to come up with a good set of financials. And then from that, we needed to come up with a business plan together with the CEO, what the next 5 years will look like, so that an investor can look at that and say, okay, I want to invest in this business. All right. So I remember flying out to San Francisco and sitting in a room with the CEO, and we're just talking to investors that are interested, explaining our business plan, explaining why they should invest in this business. And I was very happy because it was a successful project. That company raised $8 million. Wow. That was their Series A round. And they were able to buy the equipment, they were able to expand, right? And they were able to do that because they brought an expert in, right? And this is true for a lot of our clients that I would say are small to medium size.
Yeah. Would you say that experience that you had, is that a core memory for you?
It is a core memory because it's my first project at Scrub.
Flew out to San Francisco.
I flew out to San Francisco.
That's nice.
That was my first, right? And there's been countless after, but it holds a special memory for me because it was the first one here at Scrub. Though I've assisted in capital raising in my previous jobs, but it was always for larger corporations. So it was my first where I really saw the impact, because when you're dealing with a startup, giving a startup $8 million really elevates what they could do from where they did not have the capital. So plus it being my first project, I would say is is really special, right?
How about an example of a success story that you have for a larger corporation working here at Scrubbed?
Yeah, so that was 2017. I'll give you a project. If that's special because it was my first, this is special because it was my hardest one.
Wow.
So this is 2020, at the height of COVID. We were helping an airline.
Yeah.
So when I say it's an airline, obviously it's $1 billion company.
Yeah.
Right? It's a national airline that had a finance team. Really, they had more than 100 people in their finance and accounting team, right? But at COVID, all the airlines were grounded. All the airlines ran out of cash because they couldn't fly, and so this airline needed to quickly come up with a plan on how to survive.
Yeah.
The CEO of that airline is a good friend of Scrubb's, and so he brought in Scrub to come up with the financial model and all the financial planning necessary to come up with this recovery turnaround scenario, right? And again, it's not a talent shortage thing. It's more of a skill set shortage at that time because you needed someone capable of coming up with simulations very quickly, right? And this being a very large organization, though they have a budgeting process, needed really quick help. So we came in and came up with that financial forecast for them. We needed to come up with several simulations. They needed to make very big decisions.
Yeah.
Do we shrink the business? Do we shrink the fleet? These kinds of businesses you cannot answer without looking at numbers.
Why would you say that was the hardest?
It's the hardest because it's a crisis situation, right? It's number one, it's a crisis situation. Every day counts because every day you're losing money. And the complexity of the project to come up with answers quickly for a very large organization, you need a lot of data, synthesize it, and come up with a conclusion to the CEO and say, this is what you need to do, right? This is what your cash runway looks like. If you make this decision, this is what your cash runway looks like. If you make this other decision, okay, make the decision, right? And if you're making those kinds of high stake decisions, it's very stressful if you're the one preparing it. Because if you make a mistake building these things and the CEO makes the wrong decision, it impacts that organization at that time had 5,000 employees, right? So it impacts not just the 5,000 employees, but it actually also impacts the customers, which in this case was the country because it was a national airline, right? And then the process they needed to go through was a restructuring, was actually a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And there's so many regulatory requirements to get that done. So we needed airtight assumptions, financial analysis that we provided, right? And, the deal was done, the turnaround was done. It's a success story that holds a special place to me because they were able to raise more than $500 million and they were able to turn around the business. And now they're in a much better place than ever, really, in their history because of that project.
Wow.
This is an example of a very complex, high-level, high-stakes situation where an outsider can help. And this happened in the pandemic, so everyone was just on calls remotely. I was in meetings with them every week without video. So it was interesting when the project finished and we all saw each other
As the first
for the first time.
Wow.
That was very interesting. But I consider that a huge success story, both in my career and Scrubb's track record.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It really is about like finding the right partner, as you've said. Amazing. Right. So I think we're nearing at our time limit right now, and so I want to segue this into maybe a general topic, looking into the future, maybe. How do you see the talent landscape in finance evolving? Like, are there emerging trends or shifts that companies should be preparing for? Maybe companies that you've helped in your success stories could have used.
Yeah, so I won't go far from our topic.
Yeah.
So a trend that we're seeing is a continuation of a lack of talent, especially in the accounting and finance space, right? And so key to addressing that trend is really getting good at attracting and retaining talent. So one important thing that comes to mind when it comes to attracting and retaining talent is your employer brand, right? Having a strong employer brand that your current staff, your current people are proud of, that they pull in their friends and they invite their friends over, right? We have a lot of staff here at Scrub where they invited their spouse.
Wow.
They invited their sibling to join. And you won't do that if you're not happy, right?
Yeah.
And so, and that kind of snowballs into you retaining your talent more and more, right? Scrub's attrition rate is way below average, I would say, in our industry. Because of that strong employer brand driven by a strong culture, right? A culture where people are happy with what they do. They're engaged.
Yeah.
We recently got a survey done. We invited a third party to survey all of our staff to ask if it's a great place to work. And, resounding yes, we had good surveys, and now we're kind of highlighting that we got the stamp of a great place to work. It's something we're proud of. It's something we knew, but it's nice for a third party to vet it, right?
It's now official.
It's official. So, it comes hand in hand. A great culture helps you in both attracting and retaining talent, right? So, and a big part of the culture is the work environment, engagement, professional growth.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with very smart people, which we're dealing with the dying breed of accountants, right? And they're very smart because they needed to pass the CPA board exam. They need to go through a 4-year degree. They always need to find professional growth through training, through actual projects that will supplement what they learned in school. So that's something we're very big on, so that, they're happy to stay because they find meaning, they're learning, they're growing. And so that's a key trend, number one, the talent. And then number two, key trend is technology and AI will disrupt a lot of the things that we are doing now, right? And this is why earlier in the podcast I said we made a conscious decision to triple our training budget so that we could adapt to these technologies, right? I started my career where I was so proud of knowing Excel. Like, I was an Excel whiz. I knew all the shortcuts, all the formulas. I could finish a project without ever touching my mouse because all I needed was my keyboard because I knew all the shortcuts, right? That is not enough anymore. So sometimes I watch our data analytics team, right? Sift through thousands of rows of data because that's what organizations work with now. There's so much data, and right now the data analytics team they don't use Excel, they use coding, they use Python. I don't know that, right? But they do, because I look at the project and okay, I need to come up with conclusions with this 1,000-line data set. With my old, now becoming dinosaur skill set, I would use Excel. But the more efficient way of doing it is by coding and coming up with criteria to come up with your conclusions, right? Whether that's through Python or another coding language. That's an example of technology. That's an example of a technology trend that impacts the work that we do as accountants. Amazing. Right?
It's getting more creative, huh?
Yeah, and that's not even touching into the AI side, right? That's just technology. That has been getting in there for a while. AI totally shifts it because now it's even more powerful, right? Before, an accountant needed to look at an invoice and code it to the proper expense category or proper asset category. But now the systems are getting smarter. AI is being built into that. As soon as the AI sees the invoice, it already knows which accounting line it goes to.
So much faster.
Right? Yeah, and that's good for us, right? Because now it leaves more time for the professional to come up with a more meaningful processes, like analysis, right? Before, maybe 80% of your time goes to processing, doing the journal entries. But now, because of technology, you're going to do significantly less of that. You'll have more time in your hands to come up with analysis, which is good, right? But you can only capitalize on that if you know how to use the technology. Right? So that's just technology that makes our work efficient. But there's also new technology coming up that doesn't even exist right now, right? That accountants need to familiarize themselves. A project that Scrubb is working on is, and we have a very strong partner here, is we're working on an AI ESG platform, because another trend in the US is the growing importance of ESG, right? So, and this is for the listeners, environment, social, and governance standards, where we take a look at not just profit, but we look at total impact to planet and to community. So we're coming up with an AI that can assist our clients with their ESG compliance. Right now, there are new standards that are coming out, things we did not study in school, that are just coming out, that a lot of companies in the US, in the UK, need to comply with, right? So this is something that CFOs need to learn and comply with. I am in that journey right now as Scrub CFO, coming up with our own ESG report. But again, technology goes hand in hand with that. That's why we're building an AI tool to help all of these CFOs, right? So that's a trend that is coming, ESG technology. And we're trying to stay on top of that.
Gotta keep up.
If you're an advisor such as Scrub, you have to. It's our business to be on top of emerging trends and standards, right? And if you're a CFO of a startup right now, you're probably not even thinking about that. You're probably thinking about, how do I get cash for the next month, right? And so this is where you tap like partners like Scrub So you skip the you skip the learning curve, right? And ask for help. We'll be happy to help. Yeah, I think I would say those are key trends that I see that are top of mind for me, at least as CFO, and I'm pretty sure other CFOs are
would agree
worried
as well.
about as well.
Amazing. I think that's it. We did it. Thank you so much, Aira, for sharing your valuable insights on the finance talent gap and a critical role global professional firms can play in addressing these challenges. It's clear that businesses must be proactive in finding solutions, whether through strategic partnerships, investing in talent development, or embracing technology. We hope this episode has given our listeners practical ideas to tackle the finance talent shortage in their organizations. Aira, thank you so much for being here, for being in this podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to The Beehive for more thought-provoking episodes. Until next time, this is William, buzzing off from The Beehive. Thank you for listening.